Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. We can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spotted. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good. Oh, hold on. Good grief. I forgot to turn off the phantom power. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the rest of the year. That first week, sometimes a doozy. I don't know. But we should be getting into more regular action and we should see more liquidity and more volume here. And of course, we got some big stuff coming up this week. In particular, the CPI a little bit on Wednesday. A little bit later in the week on Wednesday. So let's come over into the charts and see where we're at. And we'll start with ES. So on Friday, we had a little bit of a move down here as the unemployment rate dropped once again. Although that report that unemployment report is just like super confusing these days. So I think that sometimes what you will get is like there's like the reaction and the counter reaction, and if it's strong enough, then at that point like nobody wants to fight it. So there may be some room for them to come in and say, oh, they're interpreting the report wrong. I think the issue here is that it really does look like the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates 4 times. Okay, but and that's going to be really hard to push back against. But there may be the case that they hold off. You know, there could be a slowdown here in the first half of the year. There is a little bit of a hint that could maybe be happening. So there could be room for them to push back and say, no, it's not actually that bad. So you can kind of see here in the treasuries. A push a little bit lower and now kind of a bounce and recovery. So, and at the moment they're pushing down. So it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, but there could be room for us to have, for rates to rise here in some form. All right. Oh, by the way, where is my Vista chart? Oh, there it is right there. Okay. Now we come over to oil. Oil, also taking hits. So they're saying this is bad for equities, is bad for oil. I actually think you could this might actually be a good pullback to buy oil, but we'll see. It wasn't, my data here isn't showing correctly because they were down a little bit before that. It wasn't a gap overnight. All right. Natural gas is higher this week, and that is a little bit concerning to see it above 4.1 there. That is very concerning in terms of inflation and the energy. Upcoming energy crisis in Europe. That's not a good look for them. Here in gold and silver, they continue to be pressured by the higher yields as well. Although gold is kind of holding some moving averages and stuff, so it may be possible that they languish here and push up later. But I don't know. Who knows? I just want it to go up, but of course, I don't really know if it's going to do that short term, though. It's not looking so good. Bitcoin. Coming over to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was looking pretty dire on Friday, but they recovered. Were able to hold 40K throughout the night, but it sure does not look pretty over there, guys. It sure does not look pretty. And I think that it's just a matter of time before that 40K fails in some way. And then we got over here, we've got the dollar getting creamed off of that non-farms report, but a little bit of a pullback here on that. So let's see. Yeah, coming back over here to the treasuries. This is a pretty aggressive move overall. So I don't know if for me trade here makes sense. There is more liquidity here today. Look, there's 35s up already. It counts for something. The thing is, even though the yields are higher, I don't think, or let me put it this way: in order for the yields to really just continue, that really has to be the Federal Reserve is going to raise 4 times, right? Um, if equities continue to push down, then that means that they can't raise 4 times, right? So instead, given that the rates are still increasing, I think that what we should see in the S&P 500 at some point is more of a rotation rather than just the indexes outright falling back. I mean, it'll correct, but at some point you're going to see a rotation, and then maybe they can push higher. And that rotation is going to be into interest rate sensitive or positive sectors. So that's going to be like banks, insurance companies, energy, and materials and so forth, right? So that's kind of where we want to be. I'm kind of looking at some. I do have a tech. Like I still think you want to have some sort of a tech, but the small cap techs that I'm in, pretty ugly, and I'm wondering if it's worth waiting for that to recover, because I think eventually it will, but it might be a long time, or if it's better to just dump that and get into something else. I don't know. I'm real torn. I need to do some more research. Wonder, is there a tech? What would be an interest rate sensitive tech that would maybe be beneficial for us? I don't know. Anyways, that's the world we live in today. News Squawk tweets: Pfizer CEO says he doesn't know if there is a need for a 4th booster. Okay. I'd be really surprised if they don't push for boosters every freaking year. You know, you're gonna get a booster every year. I think that's the way it's gonna come down to. 2020. Oh, that's interesting. The lights feel a little hot on my head today, but I think it's just all in my head because they're not particularly hot or anything. Camera still looks really good. Let's see, we got anything going on here? Hmm. Nassim Nicholas Taleb. This is the classical problem. Wait. Where's tweet one? Deepal. You've heard about soccer players dropping dead after taking the vax. You haven't heard about those who dropped dead before COVID. Here's something that shows an elevated risk even before 2020. Ah. And Taleb says the big secret is that practically all competitive sports are unhealthy. That, in addition to the fact that anything competitive damages your soul, this is the classical problem of naive optimization. You optimize on one dimension, causing hidden side effects in other dimensions. He's so right. He's so right. Okay, so for those who are slow at getting it, here's the strongest man of his day, a Soviet Olympic weightlifter. You optimize one dimension, you lose on another. And yes, athletes have a lower life expectancy than healthy people who work out moderately. Yep. He was a big boy. The Taleb says you should just be mediocre at them all. Well, it is true that like being at the very, very top level of a sport is it has costs on you. I wouldn't call it unhealthy, but it has its costs. Yes. Joe Scarborough's still talking about January 6th. These guys need to get over it. Let's see here. Carl Quintilla says that the volatility index is the highest since December 21st. Really? Ford is warning that it will literally pull the plug on any dealer that tries to take extra cash for the new Lightning F-150. Really? It really sounds to me like the F-150 is the new cool car, don't you think? Like, it used to be everybody wanted a Tesla, but now, like, if you want to flex, you should get the Lightning Ford. Isn't that? You believe that the Tesla still doesn't have their their Cybertruck out yet? I thought that would be out by now, but no. I shouldn't have expected so much from Tesla. And Bitfinex going on about Bitfinex exchange again, as always. I got to say though that Bitcoin, you know, when you go out, so it used to, hey Dan, how's it going? In regards to Bitcoin, it used to be, you know, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, all the Bitcoin guys going, it's just a pullback. No big deal. If you can't handle me at my dips, you can't handle me at my rips. This sort of a thing, you know? And this past weekend, it's been different. Like the sentiment on the Bitcoin subreddits is quite unhappy, let's say. Like, it's not to posting the suicide hotline or anything yet, but like it's getting awfully close. And I kind of wonder if they fell 40K and then maybe another level beyond that, like they give up. Like, I'm still of the mind that there could be another attempt at another pump. But if not, and the only reason I say that there's going to be another attempt at a pump is just because the people manipulating this don't seem to be done yet. They seem to be desperate to try and push this up. But overall, it kind of looks like that this bull run is over. Like this rise that we had through the second half of 2022 was like the what do you call it? The relief rally, bear trap, bull trap, whatever you call it. It's a bull trap. If you're trapping bulls, it's a bull trap, right? It was a bull trap. And it doesn't look good over there. Happy 2020. How are you, Uzi? You've been doing good. USD JPY backtracks into retracement support. Yeah, 6J is getting trampled a little bit here. I don't know. Like the trend, the overall trend. Oh, you have COVID, Uzi? Oh, wait, this is the first time you caught it, right? So you think you have Omicron? It feels like a badge of honor. I feel like at this point, with the way that Omicron is spreading now, and the fact that this is like endemic now, right? Like it's not going away. I feel like if you are under the age of 60, there's like a 95% chance that you're going to catch COVID at some point in your life. Yeah, congratulations. Well, one of the things that I am seeing is that like there are people out there who did everything that they were supposed to, masked up, took the boosters, stayed home, etc., 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 and then they still ended up catching it. Now, that doesn't mean that the vaccine doesn't work, but it's just, you know, certain number of people are still going to catch it. Like the law of big numbers, right? But the thing is that what they've been told I'm not even sure if it's what they've been told, but it's just been like the cultural attitude on that side of the political spectrum. And I say that side because like in Utah, it's like it's been over for a long time and nobody cares, right? But in some states, they've still been like really sensitive about it, right? Uh, and so in those places, it's like if you catch COVID, you're a bad person. Have you seen that? It's like people get shit on for just for catching it, even if they did everything that they were supposed to. And so now there's all of these I'm seeing these news articles and stuff like geared towards those people trying to help them cope with it, you know? You're a week into it now? Oh, okay. You're in the weird zone now? And you smoke the whole time. Oh, dude, you're not going to be able to taste anything for like 6 months, probably. That is going to mess your taste buds up, dude. Yeah, smoking is easier when you can't smell or taste it. Ugh. It makes me a little nauseous thinking about it, dude. Oh, 10-year ticks down there again at 050. Like, it kind of looked like they were getting a reprieve and everything, but this thing is super heavy. I don't know if it's worth even looking for the rebound here again. At least the rebound flow does not seem to be coming in today, does it? It really doesn't look like it's coming in today. Hmm. Oh, Scott Adams, do you believe Omicron is a natural variant or too perfect for that? Can't complain. I'm back on my normal routines. I just can't smell and taste. It's weird too. Like it feels like my sinuses are congested. Right, but they're not. So here's what I found. Of course, I'm still not completely recovered, but I'm a lot better now than I was. And I think the only reason I'm not completely recovered is just because I haven't really been hardcore enough about it. But like my endurance is just not what it was 3 years ago. It is not. Oh my gosh. So they got our weightlifting program and we're kind of like in the volume phase. And some of the complexes that our coach has are a little crazy. I can't I can't handle the full volume. I go about as far as I can, and then when I start to feel like my head hurts, and then I stop. Uh, I'm getting too old, man. That's the problem. You know what? I was always kind of a little. I always kind of had a limit, though. Maybe it's just that my ability to push through is less than other people, but I also think that I'm just not built for that kind of. I was probably built to like do long distance walking, but not this stuff. Anyways, so but what I found was earlier on was that it would be really hard for me to go and work out and do a solid workout and it would like burn. But once I did that, every time that I had done that, it was better. And like the COVID symptoms, like the lingering COVID symptoms that you get afterwards, improved. So rest for like the first, you know, like that month that you caught it, rest for that month. But then after that, you got to start getting yourself out there. I mean, not like out in the public, but I mean, like, you got to start pushing yourself a little bit to recover. I think that there's a lot to be said, but is left unsaid about anxiety and COVID. Yeah. Well, so hold on. Hmm. Okay, so I'm just hearing over the news squawk here that the SEC's Gensler declined to comment on whether Ethereum was a security. Oh, and they won't answer questions on specific coins. That's interesting. Okay, well. Anyways, yeah. So here's the thing that I'm noticing is like if you're in politics or you're on the news, then yeah, you talk about COVID. But in popular culture, it for there's a lot of people that it's been taboo to talk about, right? Like you don't go on a gaming stream and they talk about COVID, right? It's like it's dangerous to talk about. People will come after you, you say the wrong thing about it, right? So I think that there is a lot of discussion that's not being had on that front when you talk about anxiety. And then on the split side, I think that there's a lot of discussion about the actual science of COVID that's not being had either. Because uh we're having this problem where like if you really keep up with it and you know the science and you're reading all of the studies and everything, you could still be saying something that is contrary to what the government's line is at that point and you still get whacked, right? So even smart people are afraid to talk about it, or people that really know what they're doing, right? So I'll give you a prime example of this. Um, the Joe Rogan podcast. I think you've all heard of this doctor that went on Joe Rogan, and Zero Hedge has been promoting it as that they got through the censorship sort of a thing. That Joe Rogan is so popular and that they're putting this on there and people are looking into it, sort of a thing. Okay, right? Which I think is probably true to some extent. I think that a lot of people are concerned about this sort of stuff, and hearing it come from a doctor, like they want to hear about it and they want to know more, and they want to research about it, right? But here's the thing. That guy said a lot of bullshit on that podcast. No joke. I mean, I don't have the time or energy to go through like every teeny tiny little thing that he says, but I've seen a couple of examples where things that he said in that podcast, when you go and you look at where he's getting that from and so forth, and you look at the citations, the study did not say what he said at all. He was like grossly misinterpreting it, or just like outright uh just I don't know how else to say it. It doesn't seem to me like this is a guy that has like read all of those studies and really knows his stuff. This seems to me more like somebody that's been reading a lot of stuff on forums and kind of remember and has been following it really closely, but is not particularly good at reading the studies himself and doing the statistics himself and all of that sort of stuff, because he has said stuff in that podcast that is just like outright not true about the virus and so forth. There is always kind of like there's always a little part. Like for instance, they have done a study and they have found that the COVID vaccine does seem to impact women's periods. Like it changes when it occurs. I think is what it was, that it would come earlier or something like that. Um, but people take that and they say, see, it's creating infertility, and there's no evidence to support that, right? It- it- so what's happening is, if this had been like 10 years ago, it comes up on that podcast, everything that I would see on Reddit and internet forums and YouTube videos would be like people trying to thoroughly debunk that video, right? Like it would be me here on my YouTube channel. I would, this would be the sort of a video I would maybe be willing to make, even though it's not directly related to trading, to try and go through every claim that he made in that podcast and verify the veracity of it. Right. Kind of like I did with the Las Vegas shooting, where I was able to debunk a lot of the conspiracy theories around that. Right. But nobody does that because we're all afraid to get a strike. Man, I was thinking 795. I've just been way too. I've just been way too shy with this trade, man. Since I didn't catch like the big, I intentionally missed that first part of it, and now it just keeps going down, and every time that it goes down, I'm like, I don't know if I can jump on it here. but it's been an awfully strong flow. I found it easier to just switch off and live life as normally as possible after sleeping off a 3-day fever, that is. Yeah. Well, that's what happened to me. Yeah. It was like a 3-day, it was like for the weekend, I had a fever. And that was it. That was it. Man. So when I look at it, I expect there might be a little bit of a hole here at 30 or oh 03. Zen 128.030. Maybe a little bit of a hole. But then it's kind of like, yeah, but is it actually going to give you any reprieve? Like, is it going to come back to 050? I don't know. I don't know about that one. Oh boy, Lululemon says the Omicron coronavirus variant is constraining its operations. Anyways, you know who I blame? YouTube. You're listening, YouTube? Cut it out. Like people, stop making people afraid to like post stuff. Like let's make it back to you can say anything and the good ideas float to the top. Because what y'all did was you got all uppity about Russian disinformation. And instead of creating a really good structure to combat that misinformation, like I remember in the early days, like when it was like John McCain running that first time, and back then, there's always been nonsense on the internet, right? And it would just go to Snopes, and Snopes would always have like really good arguments, right? But then y'all undermined all of that whole structure. Undermine that whole structure by making things political. Just let people, if you just let people talk, I promise it'll work out. Okay. But I think part of the problem is that there was true information that they just didn't want people to have, right? Like the Hunter Biden laptop is probably a good example of that one, right? They brushed that off as misinformation when it was 100% true, right? And they literally organized against it to. Why you're not surprised? Well, when are you gonna? I think you're gonna catch it at some point too, Keller. I wouldn't talk because there's a pretty good chance that you're gonna catch it at some point in the future too. All right. Well, okay. So why is it? Why does that matter? SARS-CoV-2 is the virus. That is true. Let's see here. Let's read it. Let's try and find a good source about what's the difference here. The disease it causes is called the coronavirus disease, COVID-19. So, like, people think the vaccines don't work because the vaccinated still test positive for SARS-CoV-2, but the vaccines don't prevent the virus; they prevent the disease the virus causes, which is COVID-19. Well, a vaccine always. I mean, the point of the vaccine is to attack the virus, right? But that still means that the virus will be there. Jeez, it's still going. Do you think this is a buying opportunity, or are we headed much lower? Are you talking about an ES? CQ might be a little bit behind. Listen, if we're talking about Bitcoin, I don't want to have anything to do with Bitcoin right now. If we're talking about the S&P 500, I think at some point you want to buy this, but I'm not sure where. we're talking about the treasuries again. It's like I think at some point you want to buy this, but I'm not sure where. With the flow that we've seen this morning, I find it very difficult for me to try and justify a bounce here. I mean, this is just incredibly negative flow. Equities. Yeah, I don't. So even though interest rates are rising, so I think that the problem that you've got here in the index right now is that the US indexes in particular have become over leveraged onto um things that don't do well when interest rates rise, right? Like all of these big techs make up like the majority of the indexes, right? And everything else has been falling except for them. And you kind of have to wonder, well, are they not going to come down with it at some point too? And you've got like Tesla's a major portion of the index now too, right? You've actually a flow that we have been seeing that is actually turning out to be quite instrumental in the markets right now is that European equities are rising relative to U.S. equities because their indexes have a greater portion of a short duration or interest rate positive sectors um, compared to U.S. equities, right? So it's kind of interesting. I have to wonder, given that we had this huge rise over the past 2 years, and everybody's been saying, well, that's going to hurt your future gains. Could you see something like akin to a lost decade in the S&P 500 at the very least? It wouldn't be like that for certain individual stocks, but maybe for the indexes in general, there's going to be like a lost decade sort of a thing go on. I think it's very possible that that could be the case. And you know, that would mean that you're really going to want to have to manage it yourself. But really, if you're managing a portfolio here, or I'm managing, and when I in me managing my portfolio, what I've done is I've known that these higher interest rates have been coming for well over a year, and so even though they weren't the hot stocks at the time, I levered myself into things that were long interest rates. So I have materials and banks is the majority of my portfolio. I do have two techs, but I'm thinking about getting rid of one of them, if not both of them. And then maybe moving over to an energy stock and oh, I don't know. I think energy is more like what I would like, but there's a lot of doom and gloom out there for sure. Oh, if your SARS-CoV-2 infection gets particularly bad, then you have COVID-19. Well, so then doesn't that mean that all of these like COVID, number of cases aren't actually COVID-19 cases, but they're actually SARS-CoV-2 cases? Okay, what's your beef with Bitcoin? Okay, so I've got a couple of problems with Bitcoin here. Okay, but the bigger thing is the neutral position here, which is that people the underlying investment thesis for Bitcoin is that the dollar is going to get weaker and that central banks are out of control. And if central banks are being hawkish, then that hurts the investment thesis for Bitcoin, right? You're hedging against something that is going the exact opposite way right now. Central banks are being more hawkish, okay? And traditionally, I mean, the history has been that higher interest rates has been bad for Bitcoin. In 2017, when Bitcoin collapsed, part of that was because they started raising interest rates, right? Remember, it was in 2017 that they made that shift where they said, okay, we're going to start raising interest rates in 2018, right? So Bitcoin just completely puked, and then they raised interest rates like twice in 2018, and that went too far, and it was an absolute nightmare market. And so then they kind of had to back off, and that was 2019, and then we had the coronavirus, right? So the current macro environment that we have is unfavorable to Bitcoin, and that's the biggest thing, okay? But then on top of that, Bitcoin has been overbought for quite some time. From all of the metrics, not all of the metrics, but the metric that I follow, which is posted on the Patreon on, well, I don't post it nearly every day, but I post it regularly still. I at some point I want to wind that down and change how I do that. But the on-chain metrics that I look at say that Bitcoin is like still massively overbought and is in a huge bubble. Okay. So those are kind of more of the neutral things. Is that just my outlook on Bitcoin right now does not look good. Right. Then on top of that, I have like a moral problem with it at this point on multiple fronts. I think that what they're doing with NFTs is frank. I've seen behavior in NFTs that I feel is outright criminal, and it's just that the regulation and the laws haven't caught up to Bitcoin yet. But like what all of these influencers, Gary Vee and Mr. Beast and all these guys pushing crypto punks was basically a pump and dump. I don't feel that it was moral what they did. These NFTs aren't going to be worth anything 100 years from now. Nobody's going to pay any money for them if they're even available, because it's probably likely at that point that the web services that were hosting the images will be gone, because those images don't live on the blockchain, right? So that's a big problem. And the Bitcoin is being pumped up by Tether, is from what I can tell. The big thing that has had me avoid this rise was that I could see that the money was not coming from natural sources. So I think that there's a very big risk in Bitcoin still at some point of them just completely collapsing because of Tether. And frankly, they could, collapse to 80-90% decline without that. So, and the problem is that if the environment is going to continue to be unfavorable to Bitcoin, you might get a longer crypto winter this time. And then the last one is that the energy uses is just getting ridiculous. And now that you're having countries literally banning it because it's causing energy problems in their country, like that's a big problem too. And there's all these things like Ethereum 2.0 is supposed to come along to solve that problem and fix the GPU mining problem and all that sort of stuff. And then every time that it comes in that they're supposed to switch it over, they don't do it. I get that. And I still, for the life of me, cannot understand how Bitcoin has been so strongly correlated with risky assets when the entire notion of its origin says that it should be the opposite, right? Well, but that's the thing, Seiko, is that Bitcoin adherents misunderstand the very nature of the coin because it is deflationary. All right. That's the big thing that they always miss. Okay. This is an asset that over time it rises in value. Okay. That means that any item that you're pricing in Bitcoin over the long run should decline in Bitcoin numbers, right? If it was worth one Bitcoin 15 or 10 years ago, it's going to be worth a fraction of a Bitcoin today. Okay. And what that does is that encourages people to save instead of spending the money. Okay. The reason that the US economy, this whole system that we're looking at here, the reason it exists is because people have to invest in order to protect their money from inflation, right? Inflation is out there, it's a tax, but if you put your money into the market, then over a long time frame, you are going to make a larger gain than what you lost with inflation. Okay. Inflation encourages investment, right? Deflation does not. Deflation encourages you to just hold it in your wallet. And that's what Bitcoin people do, right? They buy it and then you hodl forever, right? And then it's you're supposed to make money off of it, right? What that means is that the demand for Bitcoins is very much determined by the amount of demand out there for it, right? Since the supply is fixed, the thing that ultimately controls the price is the demand for it. And if and where is that demand going to come from? It's going to come from how much money do people have in fiat? And that's why it becomes a risky asset, right? When the economy is doing well, then people have extra money to spend to put it into Bitcoin to hodl, right? And when the economy is not doing well, they don't have the money to put it into Bitcoin. So so I think it's uh no mystery that they've been putting this unprecedented stimulus, so they've literally been giving people money. you know like the government is literally wiring money to your bank account, and people turn around and buy Bitcoin with it. And that's why it becomes a risk asset, is because of its deflationary nature. And yeah, that's where it really gets kind of messed up, because like the whole idea of it is to try and get away from fiat currencies. But that's just the thing, is that the whole conception of Bitcoin is flawed from the get-go. Because if you want to create a currency that protects you against fiat currencies, right? I mean, it makes sense to make it deflationary, because you just want something that's always going to go up, and they want it to be something that if you hold, that you make money on it in the long run, right? But in terms of running an economy on it, it doesn't work. And that's the problem, is that a currency really is about the economy. Like how much Bitcoin is worth, it's the demand. And the better that the Bitcoin economy is, the more demand that there should be for Bitcoins, right? I'm probably kind of talking in circles and maybe just confusing people more, but the biggest thing here is that the even the smartest people in Bitcoin have this notion of how economics works that is just like fundamentally flawed. Trying to base an economy on a deflationary currency is like a really stupid idea. That's in part why we got away from the gold standard in the first place. It's because modern economies couldn't work on it. Okay, what were you saying here? CDC is going to clarify soon. They're going to, in damage control for the midterms, they announced over the weekend that they're going to clarify in the death data who died with COVID and who died from COVID. And with COVID literally means tested positive for the presence. I get that. Yeah. So much for the digital gold theory I bought into crypto. Well, but that's the other thing, Siko, that they don't tell you. Okay. This is the one that makes me mad. Okay, because I think that there's a potential use case for the technology. Like a decentralized ledger is a really cool application of this asymmetric key technology that we have. Okay. Um, it's just like it's being overapplied. It's like it could be a useful thing in certain instances. Like our whole system of stocks and the way that companies reconcile trades against each other and so forth when there's problems, and it takes like 3 days to do that, is like ridiculous. I think that it should be instant. I think that if you're trading a stock, you sell the stock, that money should come back into your account immediately, instead of having to wait 3 days for you to be able to use it again. I think that's stupid. I think that in the world that we live in today, that we should have the technology to do it. And a decentralized ledger, if the exchange sponsored a decentralized ledger for this, right, that could solve that problem. So the technology is really cool. Okay. Then Satoshi comes along and he makes Bitcoin. And it is the idea of a decentralized currency. Okay. But it was intended to be a currency. It wasn't intended to be digital gold. It was intended to be a currency. Okay. And Bitcoin advocates in the very beginning the argument that they would always use, and I felt that it was a very effective argument, was that Bitcoin was cheaper to use. That if you needed to transfer $1 million somewhere, paying these wire transfer fees and everything, you didn't have to do that with Bitcoin. It was literally a fraction of a cent. It was dirt cheap. It was dirt cheap. Okay. And then something happened, right? Well, the first thing that happened was Satoshi disappeared mysteriously, which I still kind of find suspicious. Okay. Satoshi disappeared. And then these guys, Adam, I think it was Adam Beck and a bunch of these other guys, basically took over the Bitcoin project. And there was some people that were really involved in Bitcoin from the get-go, people who would have regular correspondence with Satoshi that did not like this. Okay, but a company called Blockstream basically took over Bitcoin. And what they said was this: we want people to make money from mining it, not from using it. And in the long run, once you've mined out all of the coins, all you're getting is the transaction fees, right? The reward for a transaction fee isn't very good. Or at least it wasn't. It was a fraction of a cent. So even if you were doing thousands of those transactions, you didn't make very much money from mining, and that was a problem for them. So they said, we need to change it so that they make money from they set it up to increase the transaction fees, basically. And I think that they wanted to do it for multiple reasons. One, because they wanted to make money from mining, but two, because they don't actually want people to sell it. They want you to buy and stay in it forever. So at that point was when Bitcoin moved from being a currency to digital gold. Before 2016, this was not the case. Before 2016, this was not the case. Okay, Bitcoin was used as a currency, and that was its primary use case, right? Remember the whole Silk Road and all that stuff, right? But then on top of that, these guys that took things over basically went on a propaganda campaign. Man, so I was like, is it going to come back to 05? Nope, it's just still going. It's still going. It's not stopping, and I'm just kind of watching. It didn't stop. Anybody that came in and wanted to talk about it being a currency was basically banned. And there were some people that believed in the original vision and split off and became Bitcoin Cash, right? But like, if you go on to the majors, if you go on to the main Bitcoin subreddit and you talk about Bitcoin Cash, they just straight up ban you. Like, I don't post on the main Bitcoin subreddit because they would ban me. Like, if I said what I think, they would ban me. It was like 100% propaganda. Total bullshit. They hijacked it, man. And not only did they hijack it, but they hijacked it with this idea, a digital gold idea that is just stupid. It's just straight stupid. The demand for the coin is the primary thing that drives price. What better way to create demand for the coin than to have an economy, to have places where you can go and buy things with it, right? If you can go and you can buy something in Bitcoin, you can only buy it in Bitcoin, then that creates an incentive for you to go and buy the Bitcoin so that you can buy the thing. And that creates a consistent amount of activity to keep the coin going, right? So even though it's deflationary and it's still going to have like an 80 to 90% crash every 5 years, at the very least you can kind of like raise the floor. But no, that's why it makes me mad. Look at that. Look at that iceberg at 31. Yes. Plus, the market has become so cult-like and filled with the meme crap. I am hoping for a nice rally so they can get out. It is, yeah. No, you're totally right, dude. Like when that happened, I have to say, in the early days, it was a lot harder to argue against the Bitcoin guys. Okay, because they could make actual arguments. Yeah. And the problem was it would come down to like economic theories that, like, if you're a market practitioner, you kind of have an idea of the way that things go, but how do you prove it, right? Economics isn't sophisticated enough to prove a lot of those things. And so there were like difficult arguments. Now with the Bitcoin guys, it's like it seems like most of the people that are involved in this don't even know any of this stuff. Like especially this Bitcoin Cash thing that I'm telling you, I don't think that like 80% of people invested in Bitcoin know anything about that. And it's easy to argue against them because all you have to do is point out the things that they're not telling them, and they go, "Oh, wait a second, I'm not very informed on this. Maybe I shouldn't be invested in it." I say be short rates. That probably your best bet for short rates is long banks. I shouldn't say that. That would be financial advice. My take is I want to be short rates, and that's why I own banks. There you go. Now, to what Uzi was saying that the CDC is going to clarify here, there has definitely been some damage control over there, hasn't there? Because they already started to clarify that, like, yeah, not everybody that got it that not everybody in the hospital that tested positive for COVID actually had it or died because of COVID. And that these numbers aren't as bad as they might seem, which is what people have been saying from the very beginning. Which is it's kind of funny how it's like coming back to bite them, isn't it? Well, you're getting a little bit more of a meaningful pullback here now once they dipped below 128. Yeah. Republicans are either not contracting the disease or more likely they are not testing and or announcing their diagnosis publicly. Even contracting COVID is now apparently a political act. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. No, that's exactly the way that works, Uzi. You're right. It is kind of funny how it's so like I've been seeing a lot of people say like if you catch it, don't say anything. You know, don't put it on social because like it could eventually be used against you. Isn't that like totally nuts? Bitcoin falls below 40K. Well, I wasn't paying attention, but it's happening. Um, although it doesn't look like it's too crazy yet. Shall we pull the DOM for it back up? Yeah, it seems like it's pretty chill still. Really, that train column and make it super tiny. And can I see more than like maybe if I come in here and change the market depth to 100, it'll show me more levels. Hopefully. Maybe not. Maybe not. But let's change the auto center ticks to be a lot more like 48. Just pop some leaving NyQuil. Yeah, but that's where it's like kind of a problem, right? It, for most people, it's not really a strong risk. It's not like the bubonic plague where like, you know, 30% of people die or whatever the deal is, right? Um, the death rate for it is like 0.5% or something. It's just if you're older or you have any kind of compromised immune system, or especially you're obese, then it's a problem. then it's a really big problem. Like, you'll catch it, and if you don't get treatment, you're gonna die. And like, if you don't get treatment, like the death rate goes up to like 10%, right? That's enough. From my rundown of the numbers, that's enough that if you don't treat it, that would tank the, that would kill the economy on its own. I have a longer term trade on NZN. So I've been doing an experiment on a sim account where I'm basically pretending that I am a CTA, and I am, my strategy is short treasury. So how much do I make with the treasuries going down overall here? So that they're going down, I'm doing pretty well. And then if rates start to increase, presumably I should not lose as much. But that's what that is. Because the whole thing was is that I wanted to be short rates, right? I wanted to get into it and hold it for like the whole contract, and that just was not practical for me. I couldn't do it. So I said, like, the amount of risk that I had to put on to do that just wasn't working. So I went and I put it on in the treasury. And I actually went underwater a little bit, right? I was actually negative a bit and added and worked a position out. And now, of course, I look like a genius, right? But this just kind of goes to show how inefficient the market is, that you can totally know what's going to happen, but actually being able to trade it is hard. Well, there's another pretty big wipe in Bitcoin. I think that probably next support level in Bitcoin is probably going to be around the 3800s. But one of the things you got to be careful of is that, like, they'll cross through 40K just to stop people, and it may only be below 40K for a brief period. I think that longer term they're headed much lower, but for today it's totally possible that they drop 40K even to maybe even to 38K and bounce. Once you start getting below 38K though, if their momentum continues, you do have a setup where things could get really ugly, because like Microstar, they're in the 30s, right? There's a lot of these guys that are in the 30s. So once you get it, in the 30s and below 30 for sure, then these guys are losing money, and that's a big problem because at some point they might be forced to get rid of it, right? Like, what's going to happen to, if you were going to go short Bitcoin, you would want to do MSTR, right? MSTR probably not doing very well today. So they took on all of this debt, and then their investment is underwater. Oh, you know who created it, huh? That's a name I've never seen before. Peter Schiff seeing Bitcoin drop beneath 40 KL. Everybody on Twitter's talking about it. You're gonna make me search for his name. Oh, it's actually somebody that maybe could have done it. Hmm. That's somebody that Elon Musk thinks is it. He created it probably, but it is obvious. I don't know. Like, the issue that I still have is, why did Satoshi go quiet? Especially during the blockchain split, right? Like, if he had been continued to be active the way that he was, Bitcoin would have gone differently. In 2014, the Aston University Center for Forensic Linguistics conducted a linguistic study on Bitcoin's white paper to determine the identity of Nakamoto. The group concluded that Nick Szabo was Nakamoto based on linguistic similarities. Szabo has refuted the claims. He said in 2014, "I'm afraid you got it wrong doxing me as Satoshi, but I'm used to it." Hmm. Well, it's a good theory. It's a good theory, but I don't know, man. I feel like that there's no reason for um for Satoshi to be like so actively engaged in the early days and then just go completely silent, you know? Okay, so here's ES opening up. So we got a lot going on here. If the ES decides to take a little plunge here, we might see the treasuries recover a little bit. CNN politics tweets: Republicans push for hand counting paper ballots as the latest effort to cast doubt on election. How about we just have an election system that, you know, what's something that really irks me? So we talk about these things like election fraud, and that the Democrat argument isn't that our election system is secure; it's that fraud doesn't happen. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever thought about that? Why isn't the argument that our election system is secure and this is why it's so hard to manipulate the election? It's because the Democrats don't actually believe it. So here's my proposal. Why don't we just modify elections so that they're more secure? Obviously, we want to affect who votes as minimally as possible, but let's implement security measures that will increase the security of the election. And then Democrats are always opposed to it. Go figure. I wonder why. I wonder why. ES may have room to go short. Yeah, I think it could probably do anything here. I mean, there's definitely so far a pretty good incursion on the short side. Want to note, by the way, oil seeing a little bit of a jump here and regaining $79. I'm having a hard time sorting out what the currencies are doing. The 2 and 10-year spread steepened, but not the 30-year portion of it. Yes, to -6. I think they're flirting with some levels from that last FOMC meeting, right? I saw a report calling for triple digit oil. Well, I can't see that far ahead, but the reports that I was seeing were still saying 85. Bitcoin is on pace for its worst start to a year since the earliest days of digital altar. Is it really? I was on Bloomberg. Here's the big on Bitcoin though. Here's the thing: is anybody going to give me credit for saying that you probably don't want to be in Bitcoin after December? No, they're just going to be like, I'm, even Blind Mouse finds a cookie every once in a while. I guess, but I kind of called like the timing of it and everything just based off of seasonality and macro factors on TikTok. Popular, relatively popular TikToks too. Uh, hmm. Goldman Sachs, Jeff Curie, we're at the beginning of a commodities super cycle. I think you might be right. I think that we want to perfect our craft in futures so that we can take advantage of a commodity boom, guys. I think that's what we want to do. We can all be running commodities funds. That's what we need to graduate to. Hmm. Well, I said that if the E-mini took a dump here, that you might see some demand come into the treasuries. They are ticking up, but it's only like 2 ticks. Hmm. Okay, let's see what they do here. It sure so them failing 4620, let's just note that was the FOMC levels. Let's come back to our little chart here so we can kind of see charts, right? You see all those lines, those are from previous news events. So we're below the last CPI, we're below the Fed, and December's non-farms are like kind of ahead. Oh, actually, the December Fed meeting was more around 4,600. So, and despite there was getting a little bullish there in treasuries, but they slipped back another 2 ticks. Well, let's just reset it there. Yes, had a little bit of a recovery, but it still looks pretty, yeah. And it slips back down to the low awfully easily. And another new low by a tick. Seth Oddwood thing was in the hospital last week and computer wouldn't let me in your room, but was it what are you talking about? Yeah. Sometimes I'll follow somebody on Twitter and then they'll start hawking their thing and I'm like, I don't why am I following them again? What is this? Joe Weisenthal. Not only is Bitcoin not proving to be an equity market hedge, it's not even a crypto market hedge. It's down 41% since the November peak, which is identical to the decline in the MVIS crypto share small cap index. Almost no safety in the blue chip. Why did I enter that ZN trade? Okay, so just to review on the ZN trade. I've been in this trade since mid-December on the theory that interest rates were going to rise, that the Federal Reserve was going to complete their taper and raise interest rates. Okay. I knew that at 1.5 interest rate was too low, and that's why I took it. But it's a sim trade, and I've been in it since December. So it's a completely different thing, right? Well, ES is kind of fighting here. Mhm. I was about to say something else, but I don't remember what it was now. Okay, and Bitcoin, it would appear, has recovered the 42 handle. It was a very brief decline through it. Which is kind of exactly what I was saying, right? I think that longer term, there's a really good. I think uh, 40K is not going to hold. Let's put it this way. I don't think that was the low of the year. I don't think that was the low of the year, but I do think that there's a pretty good chance of like a short term bounce on any excursion below 40K here in the short term. In the short term. No minutes in Feb. That needs to be delicate on talking points in Jan. Yeah, I just like the thing that just boggles my mind is like the number of participants in the stock market here that basically just have ignored everything that the Federal Reserve speakers and individuals have been saying since like last August. How many people came here on this stream and said, nah, there's no way the Federal Reserve can raise interest rates? Like, it's not going to happen. They're not going to do it. The federal government can't pay its bills if they do that. It's impossible. Yeah, you're right. Like, I think that the professional community kind of knew, but the retail traders were like living in ignorance, blissful ignorance, willful ignorance. They didn't want to even consider that interest rates could rise or what it would mean to their strategies. And I think that that's a big part of why you're getting the reaction in the S&P 500 that you've been getting the past week. Yeah. Politico. Omicron is surging in the US, and US Democrats aren't shutting things down this time. New York to California Democratic mayors and governors are fighting to keep schools open. Keep schools and businesses open with urgency they haven't flexed before in the pandemic. Yes. Interesting, right? Yes, testing those lows again. Well, the treasury yield's having trouble coming up, though. Ouch. Yes. Another little decline. By the way, you see how Bitcoin and the ES are kind of moving in tandem? I'm long here in ZN for the short term today, not agreeing with the ES short. Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm long ZN too, but we'll see. We'll see if they find they find a reversal or not. I have to say that the downside action here for the first part of the session was pretty aggressive and a little scary. So it's kind of hard to fight that, isn't it? The only thing giving me solace on that is that it looks like I caught a pretty good spot. By the way, the volume in the ES is pretty wild right now. Like, notice we've had all of this movement. The cumulative delta difference is only negative 1,000, and like big wicks on all of those cumulative delta candles in the upper left corner. So this is actually a much more mixed market than you might realize just from the trend. But I wouldn't call it a good open. I'd say overall it's a pretty bad bearish open. I wonder if Bitcoin is done for the day, though. That move like that, sometimes they're done for the day. I've definitely seen many times where they do that sort of a thing, they recover and then doesn't really do much of anything for the rest of the day. Okay, so my feed just reset on me. Ouch. Yes, another push. They look destined for 4,600 at this point, no? Tells me the big boys have an opportunity to get more short in ZN with ES selling off, but ZN volume not showing it. Was where I'm, like, the thing that I'm looking for here is if, because of the beating that the ES is taking, that the rates back off. You're maybe seeing a little bit of that. Doesn't appear to be as important of a flow as I would like, though. Let's see here. What else are we seeing? So as we're seeing this decline, I'm seeing a lot of the commodities and so forth get hit. Like oil has fallen back to 78.50. Soybeans are getting hit. Okay. By the way, was something that I was noticing was this is kind of funny. Let's just go look here first before I say anything. Okay. Wait, they're down as well. Garlic coin, while the rest of the crypto market was getting hammered, Garlic coin was doing relatively well. But since the 7th, it's just kind of been going sideways. I'll show you here. So Bitcoin, Garlic coin did have a bit of a rise. So for the week, they're pretty good compared to the rest of the crypto market. But I was wondering, are they selling Bitcoin and moving into altcoins or something? I'm not sure that that's actually the case. Probably the altcoin season is going to be a little bit later after Bitcoin has really crashed, you know. We shall see. We shall see. Good morning, GT350. Where you been this morning? You're late. You're late. Shiba to the moon. Well, what is Shiba at? Uh, 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 well, not. I don't even have Shiba on here, do I? Dogecoin is at 14 cents. They're getting hammered too. Like when I look at it, just everything across the board is getting hit. That this looks to me, I could be wrong. It's very hard to sort this out, but it kind of looks to me like that the money is just leaving the cryptocurrency space. It's not just rotating. A little bit of an aggressive sell, down tick, let's say at 01, ticked down and a pretty decent offer placed on it. And then the 05 getting weak. And the S&P 500 eyeing another low. Should have just gone short ES on the open, man. Because look at this. It even gets even a little bit of a reprieve and they just slam it down again. Jeez. Oh, you have an excuse. Okay. 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 I'll let it slide today. The next time it's going on your permanent record. Okay, that one wasn't new lows, but notice here that the treasuries are kind of falling again. It's kind of interesting. The volume through here is actually long in the treasuries, even though they're down 2 ticks. But I guess it's kind of like within the range. So, and there's another break of lows. And it was after a fairly good volume bounce. So I think that there could be quite a bit more of a doozy here. Okay. 01 recovered. Didn't take much. So this kind of maybe just be market maker activity. This 6J kind of giving hints that it's peaked. So let's see here. Okay, a little bit of absorption at 4602. We should note. Ouch. 128 lost with hardly anything there. Yeah, 128 is a liquidity hole, it looks like. I'm not looking at HUD until year end. I tell you what. I'm really concerned that some of these stocks are in like y- a lost decade. Like I think maybe the indexes will go up, but I think that some of these stocks that like really took off and everything here could be down for the next decade, and there will be all of these guys that are holding it and will just never recover their money. You know. Bitfarms, the latest publicly traded company doubling down on the crypto market despite some experts warning its volatility makes it an unreliable investment, says Forbes. Oh, I misread that. I probably. Now I'm just advertising for them. Oh well. Hmm. Backs off at 128 again. So I'm not really seeing anything in the treasury at the moment that really suggests like a strong meta order coming in or anything. I think that this is kind of market maker activity pushing the two sides of the two edges here to see who they can get to come out and fill into them. Because some of these downticks were on very little volume, right? Like they downticked at 128. They literally pulled everything, probably in the hopes that they would get some people to puke into 31.5, but they didn't get anyone. Let's see if it does it again. See, it's like nobody's trading it yet. I'm sure that at some point it'll like come barreling through and maybe we'll be at the lows again, but ouch. Yes. Loses the 4600 handle. Well, I'm tired of this, so I'm going to bail. I don't know if they're actually going to dip here or what. I'm awfully tempted to hit into that. What do you got? Wholesale inventories coming through here, right? Nope. Terrible take. Hmm. Well, I kind of took a gamble on it going further there, and it just like it immediately turned there. So this thing is just going to be a pill here. And 128 seems like it's a really big hole. Still got an hour here. I think we could still see another leg here in the treasury trade. I don't know if it's going to be lower or it's. Whoa, did that. Eh. My Bitcoin chart keeps like screwing up. It's a little annoying. It's like, did Bitcoin get slammed down again? No, it's just the chart scrolled over to the left. Hmm. Feel like that was a pretty good bounce in the treasury, but worse. Some of the activity here in the 10-year is getting a little fishy to me. What do you think the bottom is in ES? You think that that's there 45.90? Hmm. Might be a development there at 01 in the 10-year. A decent amount of volume hit in there at least. It didn't tick up though. I'm gonna minimize Bitcoin here so I can see the 5-year a little bit better. No. Well, there was definitely some volume at 01, but then it ticked back down again. You do see, oil took another dive. Like, oil dipped below 78, but now they're getting a little bit of a rebound in oil. I think that right there in ES is worthy of an attempt. Well, I think here in the treasury, I think this is just market making. Something's going on here. Here, the ES is having some fast little swings there, and the treasury dipping down there and ticking back up again. Okay, so 05 in the ES is going to be, I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. There's a little bit of activity there before and a couple of other things on my charts that make me think that people are going to be watching that spot. So kind of hoping that they will just bust right through it. Hmm. It looks like we're getting a little bit of flattening here. At least between the 5 and the 30s. Hmm. The 5 and the 10 backed off and they be able to coax the 30 up. Looks like yes, maybe. Oh, didn't hold. There we go. Come on. I guess 25 is an area. 25 is a hole in the 30-year for sure. Look at how much is traded there. Well, yes, did get a good run there, and they're retesting it again. Is that why there's maybe a little bit of bullish coming into the treasury? Hmm. And that was a little different. The 30 and the 10 went, but the 5 didn't. NASDAQ killer, welcome. Wait, is that Salim? Easy. You know, if you went short on the open, it was an easy trade, wasn't it? I mean, knowing where it's going to stop is proving to be incredibly difficult, but you're short at 80. Well, they did come back from 80 a little bit. 65, that seems like an unrealistic target, though. Like, yes, I'm just gonna, I mean, it's a sim trade, but I'm just gonna hang on to this over here in ES. Some signs of absorption there in the ES. The interesting thing about oil is how sensitive they've been to the changes in the equities here. But I almost feel like if that's the trade you're taking, wouldn't it be just better to be short equities? Because if this flips around, oil is going to flip back up a lot harder than the equities are, yeah? Because they've got a supply problem in oil. There we go. So here in the treasuries, I'm still not getting signs of like a strong flow coming through, just market making behavior, but they do make strong ticks in through this area. Not particularly happy about the way this is going, so haven't been able to get even more than, let's see here. Not even able to get more than 3 ticks favorable, huh? Jeez. Okay. I mean, those treasuries sure look like they could go for another leg. Uh, nope. At that time. Okay. That's what I wanted to see there in the ES. Short-lived bounce. White Friday's U.S. retail sales report could signal trouble. That's from Friday. How low can Bitcoin prices go? Asks Forbes. So now we're getting some buying there at 31, 24, 2400 tick up. Yes, another low. When these micros aren't giving you very, like, the low of the day is 82 and the high of this range 01 is like 8.5. So you don't really get very good placement no matter what you do here. That is some encouraging upticks. Like, I wish I got into Bitcoin mining like 5 years ago. Oh, did you see that? What was that? Big old order of 4K was stacked at 31. Was that a hint? That kind of looks like a hint. Hmm. See how they do that? Like, if you hit it and it doesn't immediately go, then they push it against you 2 ticks in the micro. It's not necessarily them reacting to my order. It's they're reacting to the 10-year change in here, and they're flipping it on them back and forth so that whichever way it goes, one side gets maximally screwed. I don't know. I don't know if I can explain it better than that. Okay, but that was a pretty good uptick. Now at 128. So I wonder if somebody was giving us a hint there, man. It's like, nah, I'm gonna push this up now. Don't fight me. Okay. Thank you, sir. And there's another uptick. This is turning into a pretty solid trend here. But the 01 has been the area that they've had problems at, right? So let's see what they do here. Oh, 3K absorbed as 0.0 This is, yeah. Okay. It's definitely a change. I don't know if I'm seeing a change in the spread. I guess I am seeing a little bit of steepening. The 5-year coming up there a little bit. Let's like reset this all right here. Hmm. Well, the E-mini has been kind of chilling here for quite some time. Okay, uptick. They hit 0.5 now. Yes. Okay, and then you clear 0.5. All three of them together too. So the whole complex moving up here. I'm detecting maybe some changes in the spreads, but it doesn't look like this trade is really a spread trade. Looks like so far, we'll keep an eye on it, see if the spread tells us anything, but so far it's been just across the board. The equities seem to be taking some solace in this too. So look at that breaking, doing a real, oh, I don't know what you call it. Is this even a chart pattern? Comes pretty good down move and then just chop. Yep. Yeah, maybe. They still got a ways to go here in the ES before I think everybody starts going, oh yeah, this is definitely long, and they pile onto it and everything, you know? Okay, so Bitfinex, this is a point that they've been making for a while that I think is a really good point on you guys on Bitcoin. Okay, so this is Bitfinex anti Bitcoin Twitter account. Okay, saying that Tether is fraud. Tether price of Bitcoin is 4,100 fraudulent tethers. Real money price of Bitcoin is 2,900. That's the real money discount, 29%, but people allegedly are still sending billions of dollars to Tether to buy Bitcoin at greater costs, question mark. Everybody knows that grayscale Bitcoin is fully backed by real Bitcoin, but not redeemable in the short term. It trades at a 29% discount. Nobody knows what Tether is holding. It's not redeemable, and Tether has been caught lying about their reserves. It trades at a 0% discount. Grayscale Bitcoin has transparency into what their assets are, and the market prices Grayscale Bitcoin at a 29% discount. USDT has zero transparency into what their assets are, and the market prices of USDT are at a 0% discount. The only difference is Grayscale Bitcoin trades in a place where you need real money to bid on the assets. USDT trades in a place where you don't need real money. The discount is so high, but we don't see anyone selling Bitcoin to buy Grayscale Bitcoin at the absolutely staggering discounts it trades at. Probably because they know if they start selling enough Bitcoin to close the spread, it will set off a death spiral. He is so right. Well, I tell you what, this uptrend now in the treasuries is looking awfully strong, isn't it? Now, this O3 area is one that we got to keep an eye on because that's kind of like seller's cost basis. If we were to flip, well, in the treasury, the spread is really wide. In the 10-year, the spread is really wide, and you don't get to buyer's cost basis until 06. I should reset this here. Yeah, okay. Live action added more. Oh, for going along the ES. I know. It looks like they've kind of found a bottom for now in ES, but, for all we know, it goes sideways and pushes lower later, right? Definitely some interesting things going on here in the treasuries. Bit of volume trading hands there between 0.5 and 0.2. As they bounce off of the seller's cost basis. So Maybe a little bit of equity correlation coming in here too. Well, here's O1 again in the 10-year. O1 is that spot that they had so much trouble with before, right? Wow. Commodities trader Pierre and Duran capped another strong showing in 2021 with one of his hedge funds returning 87%, sources say. I want to know more. Find out more. Oh, why am I over here? Let me come back over here. Hmm. By the way, I didn't detect any serious correlations when the treasuries bounced back up there. Like the 6J is kind of meh. And the 6J did rise, but it's kind of like all over the place. Oh, you know what's going on here. I know what's going on here. Global, no time scroll. There we go. It looks like it's steepening because the 30-year is lagging a little bit. Ooh, oil is coming back with vengeance here, back to 78.80. And they recover 79. That would be awfully positive, I think. Come on, buddy. What are we going to do next here in the 10-year, huh? Well, equities had a good run there. They're pulling back a little bit. Didn't quite get through 95. Certainly didn't get back to 4,600. 4,600 though, if they were to make it back to 4,600, that could probably trigger a reversal. Or at least it would screw up a lot of strategy. It would screw up a lot of trend strategies. Let's put it that way. Screw up a bunch of 10. Okay, whoa, look at that. 5-year pushing hard there. Orders hitting into 18.5. Oh, somebody else pushing back. I don't know. That was interesting. Did you see that there was like 900 contracts bought there at 18, quarter and 18 half, and then they immediately sold back through 18 quarter and 18. So was actually more on the sell side there in the 5 year. But it did tick up quite strongly there first before getting smacked back down. So we got multiple sides to this, I guess. Although that reaching at 18 half may have been a stop run, right? NASDAQ killer, hello, I can see you. We still got about 30 minutes here. You were short what move? The ES? Oh, it is Slim. Yeah, I saw your message in there. You made 900. I'll go back through and try and find your other name and make sure that it's not on there. Now is not a good time to be trying to sort through that. No, it's okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. The slide, Discovery Trading Group tweets, the slide in big cap index prices continued today as many feared. As to be expected, the dip in SPX is being led by consumer cyclicals and technology. Key question, though, is whether the puke test continues. The puke fest continues hard into the close. Yes, because we're kind of getting some signs of a reversal. Right now, they're doing the test. So if they make like a higher low here, especially like maybe we'd have to have a pivot. But if they can get a higher low here, and yes, not that it matters because that's technical analysis, right? But that's what everybody's going to be looking at. Just to say, there are some signs that it's reversing, right? The treasuries, meanwhile, while there has been some fireworks back and forth, they seem to be holding these prices in the 10-year at 0.2 fairly okay. So we shall see. And we'll see if the ES decides to make a lower low or not. That's the big question, I think. They're doing the dance here for sure between 20 and 20 half and the 10-year. Looks like there's still some buy side demand in the 5-year. Actually, the 5 and the 30 ticked up. So we getting some convexivity here today, huh? I don't know. I might be reading, like when I'm trying to read the spread here, I might be seeing like a 1 tick difference, and then like it moved up and it did not really any difference. So this is your new one. NASDAQ Killer is a good name. I like it. I laughed as soon as I saw it. I thought, that's probably Salim. Oh, some volume hitting into 03 now. So let's just note again, the market maker positioning at 03 is important. Probably going to be some longs taking contracts off there to try and, break even on the day. Yeah, see that the 30 and the 5 are going, but then the 10-year doesn't want to go along. And you're just seeing a pretty decent amount of level 2 activity in the 10-year here. I'm wondering, I don't know, the timing right now for a move kind of seems a little iffy, but there is the activity. It kind of makes me wonder if um, we'll see a major change in the treasuries when the European markets close. This means that I am pretending the Nasdaq does not kill me. Oh, I get you. Nasdaq killer could very quickly turn into killed by Nasdaq, right? There's some hitting into 18.5 in the 5-year uptick. Now 18.75. Nope, not yet. I love it when it plays that game. It's like they tick up, nobody takes it. So I always wonder, okay, like if one retail trader decided to buy at 18.75, would that change anything? Probably not, but new lows in ES. Wow. CDC director says over 75% of COVID deaths were people with at least 4 comorbidities and were unwell to begin with. Comorbidities. That is a kind of a little bit of a weird word to say. I don't know if I've ever, like, I've certainly read that word many times before, but I don't know if I've ever actually used it myself. Comorbidities. Blah, da, 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 da. Can you say that 5 times fast? Comorbidities, 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 comorbidities. Yeah. By the way, dollar kind of on the downswing here, below 96 now. Still not quite doing it. There could be more here. This iceberging at 0.2 all that may just be market makers trying to rebalance, because we had a pretty aggressive down move. I'm sure that they were stuck with a lot of long contracts, and now that we're kind of getting back to like the short cost basis, you want to reduce your inventory just in case, you know. At least I've noticed that there's a tendency for that to happen. But there's also a tendency for them to cross all the way through, right? And that would take us up to 0.6 in the 10-year. But the 30-year is almost already there. That's again where I'm kind of like, I'm not quite sure what this red is doing. It looks like some steepening, like in the 530 and 5 and 10, or sorry, the 30 and 10 and the 30 and 5 steepening. The 2 and 10 didn't really do much. So I don't know, but it does look like steepening. So if we are going to steepen, then we want to be watching. We expect that the 5-year to be the one that's pushing it, right? But nobody's hitting that 18.75 yet still. Oh, somebody did hit into it and they got smacked. They got smacked back down. They're like, no, don't do that. Okay. No, more people are willing to do it now. So let's see. Equities, meanwhile, recovering off of another new low, but I have to say, um, they're handling that new low fairly well, right? It's not super crazy yet, so we are coming out of like the reversal time period where between 10:15, 10:45, there are often reversals in the S&P 500 and in the treasuries, to be honest, for that matter. But not it's the kind of still a jumbled mess. The jumbled mess. I'm not losing it. I'm stumbling over words all over the place here. Putin says Kazakhstan saved from foreign-backed uprising. Prove that, please. I'd love to. Nothing irks me more than when a foreign power, a country, United States, Russia, otherwise, comes out and they make some grand proclamation. This is just foreign agitators, yeah, but then they offer no proof for it. Because I mean, if it was, it's not like the United States are going to admit to it. By the way, you notice a zero hedge, they totally post the Russian propaganda. They totally do it. They were saying all sort. They were basically on Russia's side for Kazakhstan, which was a little bit like a popular uprising, and then a foreign power comes in and quells it. That's pretty what? That's not the way things are supposed to work. Okay, maybe we are getting some steepening because the 10-year and the 30 backed off there, but the 5 did not. The 5 is still up at 18.5. Now I just got that comorbidities word stuck in my head. 75% had 4 or more comorbidities. Ugh. Okay, so there's this. Let me tell you, there's Jack Proseviak is retweeting this article from AmericanMind.org where they basically say how wokeness arose from the hyper obsessive, hyper fragile culture of a half forgotten platform. And basically, the article, I've read this, and it is an interesting article, but I think it's a little suspect too. And the claim that they make in this article is that wokeness essentially originated from Tumblr posters going through watching the show Glee. And I don't think that really makes sense. Like that people that I would think that the fans of Glee would be prone towards this whole intersectionality thing and would certainly participate in that, and you could see how it ended up being a disaster for Tumblr. But I don't think that was the origin of it. I think that it goes much further back. Much further back. When was that? Well, let's see here. Mm. Started in 2009. Yeah, I don't know. It was definitely like around 2008, 2009 that that stuff started to come about. But I think that it was more than just one spot. I think that it was kind of like an overall, like the far left overall started doing all this stuff. And I think that a lot of these ideas were already out there and were spread more far and wide with the Occupy Wall Street movement. Eh, the woke is lazy, everyone wanting. I think that wokeness takes advantage. The one thing that I think is interesting about that article is that I think that they really kind of give you an idea of how wokeness kind of takes advantage of almost childish impulses in ourselves. That it's like a high schooler's approach to the world is how you put it. Like in high school, for some people in high school, you know, the cliques that you belong to are like everything, right? And the whole social order at your school and popular media put such a focus on it. For me in high school it wasn't a big deal, but I don't know, some people in my school felt that it was that the our school was really really clicky, you know? So I'm like, well, maybe if you are like a popular kid, then you're into that. But you get what I mean? It's like it's a high schooler's approach to the world. I think that that's very much what they're doing. Like, here's how I would put it. Most of these woke arguments in the end really boil down to I should have more power. And let me tell you something, guys. You don't want to give more power to the whiny one. You don't want to give more power to the person that's whining that they should have more power, right? If their ideas are so effective and the injustice so high and everything, they should be able to be successful. Their ideas should be able to garner support on their own without requiring people's pity to get them to vote for those ideas. You know what I mean? You don't want people basing policy based off of feeling bad about something. It's just kind of they should be making decisions because that's what's right or because that's what's effective. You don't want to give power to the whiny one. You ever had a situation when you were a kid? Like I say, this is childish. Have you ever have a family? I don't know how many kids you had, but we had four kids in our family. You ever have a situation where a younger sibling was complaining about something, right? And then that younger sibling was given their way, and that solved all of the problems? Never works, right? That's why usually you start whining about something, your parents are disinclined to go with it, right? Because they're immediately like, well, if you have to whine about it, then maybe it's not a good idea. Well, hmm. I want to quit here in 2 minutes. Seems like maybe the treasuries could move higher a little bit later, but things have kind of died down. I still wonder what are they going to do once the European session closes. I do think in equities in particular might see a little bit less selling because there's that whole sell US, buy European equities. So when we close, that might go away. So that might help ES. But I'm not sure what it's going to do over here in the treasuries. Yeah, I don't know. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Markets start week selling again. That's what we're going to call today's video. Hey, look, there's a pretty good push back up there to the highs. They're like, no, Seth, don't go. We're going to go. Well, I need to at least turn the laptop on. Well, the 5-year broke through that 18 3/4 resistance. What's the craziest thing you've seen in the woods? What? I have to think about that. I don't think I've seen too many bizarre things in the woods. Trying to think back to, we need to go camping. That's what I need to do this year, maybe. The markets are boring right now. Hey, just stick in here. I think in 30 minutes, remember, the European market closes at the bottom of the hour. Okay, so there might be some changes in the flows there after that. I don't think that they're done for the day. But for us, I think it is time for me to get going. So I appreciate it. Thanks for all the likes, guys, and for sticking with us. I will, by the way, I did record a video, but I'm giving myself like a week to edit it. So I kind of want to go on this, record 1 week, edit the next week, and see how that goes. So anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, CPI Wednesday, that's the big one, right? So don't miss that. In the meantime, stay profitable, friends.